Welcome, everybody, and thanks for being here at the accessibility panel. Hope some of you had a chance to check out our booth, our accessibility zone. It's the first time it's been done here at ADC. So you can come and check out some of the cool tech and some surprises. You can see we all wearing Will You Be Next t-shirts. So Will You Be Next stands for a few things. Will you be next to join the movement to make all your products and services accessible and open up a bigger market for yourself, as well as making things accessible for us, differently abled musicians, producers, etc. Right? Will you be next to win a prize at our booth? So want you to pay attention to some of the things that are happening, because we probably, when you come to the booth later, we'll probably ask you something about the panel this morning, and if you answer the question correctly, who knows what you're walking home with, right? So without further ado, let's get into the panel. And I wanted this morning to be a celebration, right? Sometimes accessibility panels and accessibility events could be a little heavy and probably even a little bit scary. Sometimes I might leave an accessibility panel feeling scared, right? So I want to remove those fears this morning, right? I want to focus on the positive things, right? It's a celebration. We all know that, yeah, whatever, there's a lot to be done, but it's going to get done, right? But we're not going to get it done by obsessing about it. Oh, this needs to be done. I mean, I had an experience, I had a few things planned for the panel, but, I've learned a few things over the last few days, and I decided, okay, I'm not going to go with what I had planned. I'm going to focus on the things that kind of came to mind in the last few days. And one of them that I want to kind of start with, right, was a little bit worrying to me. So someone approached me, and they were very cautious about approaching me. I don't mean to be rude. Should I say this? Should I not say this? How do I talk to a blind person, right? So since when did someone need a manual or a user guide? How do you meet Jason? How do you talk to Jason? That's crazy, right? Just, hey, Jay, how you doing, right? What's up? You know what I mean? I do. So, a lot of people tend to take the thing about talking to a blind person or a differently able person, with a manual. How do I approach? We're just like everybody else. Nothing is different, right? Well, yeah, we can't see, and we might, if you put your hand to shake my hand, I might miss it the first time, so don't be offended. Just say, oh, I want to shake your hand. Things like that, right? But I don't want it to be a heavy situation. In 5 years' time, I don't want to be asked to do an accessibility panel, because I'm hoping there'll be no need to, right? Because, yeah, big round of applause for that one, right? So, so that's one thing. So just, it's all good, right? It's all cool. And we'll address everything else as we go through the panel with different people. So this morning, I've asked some really special people, some really special friends to join me for the panel, right? To represent different parts of disability and, musicianship, audio developers, because we are at ADC after all, right? So anyway, so we have some pretty cool people on the panel. First person I want to introduce is my good friend, Mary Alice, right? And she's industry. She's the CEO of Creative United. And I know what it is, but I always get it wrong when I try to tell people what it is, right? So Mary Alice, I want to, talk to you about, first a little bit about you and about Creative United, what you represent, what your experience has been, interacting with. Guys, I'm going to use the word differently abled, because I know, it's disabled and whatever, but I don't really see anything disabled about me or James or Grace right here, right? We do things differently. You use a mouse, I use a keyboard, right? Things like that, right? So forgive me, or I hope you could, if you don't mind if I use the word differently abled, because we do things differently. We're not disabled would mean that we can't do it, right? You're unable, you're disabled. And I mean, that's a big conversation for another panel, but. So Mary Alice, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and what your interaction has been with people like myself and James, and yeah.
My name's Mary Alice Stack, and I'm the Chief Executive of a company called Creative United. We're a social enterprise, and I met Jay a few years ago now when we started as a business looking at issues around access and inclusion in music making for differently abled people. So the company as a whole, what we focus on is access and inclusion right across the arts and creative industries. Music is a special area of interest for us, and for many years I've been running a program called Take It Away, which is designed to make it more affordable for musicians to buy the instruments and equipment that they need to develop their skills, either professionally or just as an enthusiastic amateur. So access to affordable musical instruments was our starting point. And then a few years ago, I met someone and had a conversation, and she really helped me understand that for some people, the design of the instruments themselves was a barrier. The cost is one thing, and when you're talking about differently abled people, the cost of being differently abled is actually very much higher than for everyone else. So accessible equipment of all kinds often adds a premium to the cost of doing what you love. So we began looking at design innovation in the music sector and trying to understand how we could help drive innovation so that not only was the cost of buying a musical instrument that was fit for purpose for your needs, but also the design of the instrument itself was open and accessible to you. So those two things, financial inclusion and disability access, were the two areas that we were focusing on. And my introduction to Jay really came through an initiative that we ran, a kind of hackathon-style project, where Jay came in to work with a group of other people on the challenge of accessible tech. Now, I have to say, audio technology is not my area of expertise, so I'm really, I have gone on a huge learning journey, getting to know Jay and understanding the way that he has approached this as someone who is really has driven this area of development from the point of view of his lived experience as a blind musician, composer, accessibility consultant. So I've learned so much from Jay and from all of the other people who I've met in this journey I've been on, understanding what accessibility really means, both for people who are visually impaired, but also those who have other physical impairments. So we're doing huge amounts of work with lots and lots of different people, and the way that we work as a business really is built on collaboration. So I don't put myself out there as an expert in accessible music technology, but I know people who are, and my job is to try and raise standards right across the industry, the understanding of what accessibility means. When you go into a music retailer, you should experience that music retail environment in just the same way that anyone else does. You should be enabled to understand the equipment on offer, to try it out, to take it home, to build your musical knowledge and skills. So it's about raising standards in retail. It's about raising standards of understanding what disability looks like within a performance setting, so accessible stages, accessible audience experiences. All of those things are part and parcel of what we do at Creative United, and it's a real privilege to be working with Jay.
Thanks so much, Mary Alice. And you know, the feeling is mutual. It's a privilege to be working with you and the amazing team at Creative United. So now, so we're going to take things, I'm going to follow on from where you're going, and you're talking about, design that's, inclusive and everything. And I think the time is right. It's only right that I should shift the focus to my friend, Harry Morley, who has just done an amazing project, the first fully accessible audio interface, the Vocaster from Focusrite. And Sarah, my wife, and I had the privilege of working with Focusrite, and especially Harry and his team, to work on the software to make sure that the Vocaster was launched out of the box, not 50, not 75, but 100% accessible. My friend Harry Morley. And Harry, I want you to talk about, your passion for doing this and what the experience was like, working with Sarah and myself and the rest of the team. If you say a few words about that and, add some insight.
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Harry. I'm a musician and I'm a software developer. Been at Focusrite for 3 years now. And I fairly quickly in my sort of career became involved and interested in accessibility because I felt like it was just the right thing to do, the obvious thing to do, because at Focusrite, our mission is to remove barriers to creativity. So it just fully aligns with that. So I see no reason why we shouldn't. And the Vocaster project came about just as the Juice framework became accessible. We sort of chatted with them as they sort of enabled these tools to expose things to screen readers. And yeah, so we started building the control software for Vocaster, and it was a real privilege to work with Jason and Sarah. We kind of consulted with them on a few things just to make sure the experience was right. Yeah, I really enjoyed it because it just made us question the design of the software as well as the sort of top level front-endy stuff, because you think, okay, this needs to be accessible, and you go, okay, but what are we trying to allow the user to do, etc. So yeah, and it was just a wonderful experience, and we're still going. We're still making improvements. So yeah, that's.
Thanks so much, Harry. And yes, it's been an amazing experience, and it's happening across the board. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it at the end of the panel. So, for those of you, I want to address something that probably comes up, when manufacturers are deciding, should we make our equipment accessible? What about, but it's a very small market, there aren't that many disabled people. Does it make business sense? And then some people come at it with, oh, it's the right thing to do morally, which is all true. But guys, I want to, as a businessman myself, I want to say it's a business opportunity for you as manufacturers as well, right? There's a large market there. We're not going to get into figures and stuff today, but there are probably over 200,000 differently abled musicians around the world, right? And who are waiting for your equipment to become accessible. So there is a business case, and to reap the rewards of that business case, you need to do things like launch campaigns. So for example, you may do a campaign targeted to young people 25 years old to 50 years old, that sort of stuff, right? You also need to have your marketing campaign do marketing to differently abled people, disabled people. And it's a fantastic business opportunity. And we'd have to look no further than my friend Grace Capaldi, who just launched the amazing Echotown studio, and she'll tell you a bit about it. But her studio is, anything you can think of, equipment-wise. Grace, okay, Jay, should I buy this? Yes, okay. Oh, Jay, I ordered it. Okay, I'm gonna get this. So Grace is there, she built a fantastic facility with her husband, Nick. That's fully accessible, but Grace is there ready to purchase your equipment once it becomes accessible. Now, Grace is an amazing person. She's amazing Grace, actually, right? And she runs a really successful business, as I just said, and I'm going to ask her to tell you a little bit about, a life in the day of Echotown Studios, to tell you a little bit about it. And Grace, take it from here.
Thank you, Jay. I'll pay you that $5 later for all the compliments. So yeah, my name is Grace Capaldi. Myself and my husband, Nick, had the typical boredom during lockdown and decided to build a recording studio. What else do you do with your time? So obviously, I'm in a wheelchair, so I've had, faced the other studios which haven't been so accessible to me when I've gone to sessions with Nick, and you get the typical, can't get through the doors and all things like that. So we were like, do you know what? We're in a world now where it's so inclusive. Technology these days can be inclusive for everyone, work for everyone, and we can make anything happen. So we thought, let's get a recording studio that is going to be inclusive for everyone to use. Let's not have any barriers. So it was purpose-built for that reason. I lost my garage to it, but it's cool. And the front garden's gone, but it's all right. And we now have a purpose-built studio down in Dorset, which everyone can use. And Jay was a massive help in helping us make that happen, because he was our accessibility consult on that, and it was such a brilliant relationship with him and his wife Sarah that we created. And all his knowledge that he has helped us cater for everyone with the studio, and it's really he's just the guy to go to on things like this. So we've got things from like Focusrite. We'll chat with you later, Harry, and it's it's been mind-opening for me because I'm not from a music background. I've been very much admin and retail. So for me going into this world and diving into it, it was very different, but really cool and really exciting. It was just something that I felt, yes, we can take this and we can do it, there's nothing stopping us because it is such a versatile world. It's a free world. And the idea behind it is that music is accessible to everyone pretty much. Everyone kind of enjoys it. Everyone can experience it, dance to it, do everything with it. So is the creation of it, it wasn't quite there. So we're just trying to help booster it along and make these things happen. And it is with your products and everything that it's really going to happen. And it will just be something that not only, helps different able people, it does help everyone in everyday society, making it all inclusive. And that was the idea behind Echotown. So I feel like I rambled a little bit there. But it's nice to see. And we launched in March, and we've had really good months of being busy, and we've now got a little waiting list going on for people to come to use it, which we never thought would happen. And the dream is now, coming alive. And I do very much, like I say, the admin side of things, and Nick's the one that deals with everything techie and things like that. And that is basically our lives at the moment.
And thanks so much, Grace. And as product developers, I'll let you into a little secret, right? Grace is the one you want to get close to. So Grace, when we talk, we normally have a chat every few weeks or whatever. So Jay, what's new? What's accessible now? Arturia, Key Labs. Okay, how many do I need? Okay, 3? Okay, I'll order 3. Okay. Oh, the Avid S1. Oh, you're using it? It's accessible? Okay, let me get 2 of those, right? So Grace is somebody you definitely want to stay close to, right? Right? And I know other people like that, around the world. I do some teaching and different universities. I know a lot of people who are just willing to go for the products, right? So someone who's been talking my head off over the last couple of days regarding, just because of his passion for accessibility, he's helping me to spot all the shortfalls and all the good things as well in accessibility, but he's just helping me to spot them all from Spotify. My friend Quentin, and how do you say your last name?
Belston.
There we go. Quentin. So there we go. See, if you can't do it, get somebody else to say it for you, right? So Quentin, I want you to talk a little bit about what you do. Quentin works on the Android app for Spotify and making sure that it's accessible to screen readers and to everyone, actually. And he's so passionate about accessibility. I say my ears actually hurting from talking to Quentin over the last 2 days. So let him talk your head off for a couple minutes. Quentin.
I'm Quentin. You don't have to remember my last name. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll find it's there. I kind of fell into accessibility quite by chance. I remember at the bank I was consulting at the time, whenever a ticket came in, the developers would hide under the table from the QAs, literally, because they didn't want to deal with it. Mostly because it was a mix of cross-platform and native, so it was really quite something to have to deal with. But eventually, I'm the kind of person who was like, hey, I don't mind learning something new, and I want to see what the challenges are. I want to see, why are we struggling, And the tickets weren't that heavy to do and to accomplish and sort of get fixed. And so accessibility kind of faded into the background a little bit. And then my next project was quite heavily focused on the medical industry, which meant the requirements were quite high. They were AAA, if that means anything to you. It was quite a very high standard was being held to the app that I was working on. And again, the developers were quite scared of approaching it purely because they didn't know, and they didn't know how long the commitment was going to be to learning what was going to be required. And nobody wants to speak for someone they're not, right? Because that's pretty much what discrimination is, right? Is pretending you're representing someone you're not representing. So there was a tricky sort of gap that someone needed to take a step forward and cover, and I was lucky enough to kind of be pushed over that gap. And they said, okay, Quentin, we need someone to do this. You drew the lucky straw of getting to do it, and I loved it. I loved like learning something new, learning about like how accessibility and usability are like very related, and I'm starting to learn more and more and more about how as we moved from a waterfall mindset to an agile mindset, we kind of threw away the training that had to do with usability in general and all the knowledge, because there's great research from like the 1980s about how much development costs, development changes, or cost in development as opposed to in design and as opposed to production. And in the 80s, it was something like 1 to 10 to 100. And I think that had to do with the nature of deployment in the 80s. So the 100 has probably gone down. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. And ultimately that led me to go and meet Jay in his studio, which was really fun. Like I got to go and see what an accessible music studio looks like.
Okay, thanks so much, Quentin. And one thing we discussed when you came to the studio to see what an accessible studio was like, you expressed to me that you were quite surprised in terms of like, it was a little bit different to what you expected. You saw a lot of mainstream equipment.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think I'd like to mention what I thought I would see. I thought I was going to come and see a whole bunch of cables everywhere and a whole bunch of like pull drawstrings at the top and braille on all the devices. I was actually quite keen to see what the innovation was, like what was different and how I could use it, how I could steal the ideas, basically, because I really like learning. And what I came and saw was a really neat professional studio that looked like what I would expect to see in any studio. Jason just uses everything. He knows where all the buttons are, and it's not because he's got any like particularly massive memory. He's just relying on the software to talk to him. And it was really phenomenal to see how the stuff I do really can make a difference to someone entering into the market, someone, and I mean, the thing is, if you turned on TalkBack or whatever voice screen reader you use, you could actually use it as a tutorial to find out what that button does, and maybe a little bit more than what is sort of mentioned just purely printed on the screen. So it was really cool.
Yeah, and what that kind of says is that it's not really that difficult. I mean, the technology is here. So, if we decide to make something accessible, it's not like, I mean, I know something people used to be concerned about before is like, okay, if I make this thing speak text, maybe it might mess with my pretty sexy looking GUI, right? It doesn't have to be that way, is when Sarah does like a website or whatever, or if we develop in software, if we're talking to people, yes, go ahead. I can't see it, but I like to know that I have a sexy GUI up on my screen when people come into the studio. So there's no need to compromise the look of your software, right? It could be most fantastic looking software. Just a few things to take into consideration. And so it's not that hard to do. There are many different ways of doing it. And I know this because, I've had the privilege of working over the last few years with different manufacturers and making their hardware and software accessible. And I want to talk, so it's not that hard to do. So it's something you definitely could engage in. Don't be scared of it. Don't be like, oh, how do I get started? We all start somewhere. And, the beginning is a really nice part of the process. I like when somebody comes and tells me, Jay, I don't know anything about accessibility, because then I know we could build a cool relationship together and we could learn this thing together, And I'll give you an example. My friend Pierre from Arturia, who you're going to see in a little while, when we first spoke, he says, I asked him to be on a panel that I was doing, and he said, Jay, I don't know anything about accessibility right now. So I said, Pierre, there you go. That's why I want you on the panel, right? So we spoke, we had a nice chat and everything, and he actually came and did the panel, and he was fantastic. Everybody loved his performance. People asked him a lot of questions. And a month later, Pierre was the one who came to me and said, Jay, I have something I want you to check out. We started to make our software accessible. same peer who told me a month before that he didn't know about accessibility. And within 5 months, we had released the keyboard, the key lab, analog lab with accessibility, you know? And it wasn't a situation where I approached him, Pierre, you need to make this accessible. Shame on you if you don't. It's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we check this out? Let's see how we can make it as accessible. Let's do this together, right? And I want to compliment his colleague, Kevin Molcard, who I met at ADC here in 2019, you know, who got that ball rolling. And we'll tell you more about it, you know, later. I mean, I told you about Kevin last year, but since then, you know, he's done a lot more. You know, Arturia has started and they haven't stopped. And 3 years later, they've done so much of their software is accessible. And all Kevin says to me is, it's only the beginning. Right? So, I mean, Arturia, you know, among other companies, which I'll be telling you about, you know, amazing thing. The beat goes on with Native Instruments Machine, which I'll be telling you about soon as well. You know, of course, Avid holding it together with the #1 DAW still, Pro Tools fully accessible, you know, which is the base, you know, that I work off of, and, you know, still the industry standard, going strong. Dave Tyler and the crew, right? Focus, right? But I'm going to save these things for later, and I got to tell you about the fully functional recording, mixing, and mastering control surface, right? So, Arvid, we talking just now, right? So, yeah, so it's an amazing time, everybody. You know, it's an amazing time. One more thing that I want to address is, you know, the whole thing about it's morally correct and everything. And I spoke about it a little bit before, but kind of don't really let that be your driving force to do it, right? I mean, a lot of things are morally correct, but it's an industry, as you know, as you heard from Grace, you know, she runs a successful business. You know, it's business as usual for all of us, right? Yeah, we all do things. It is morally correct as well, right? I'm not knocking that in any way, but don't let that be the driving force, because, you know, what those things tend to do, they tend to put things in the back burner. Yes, it's something we need to do, but we have a release that we need to get out there to the public in 3 months, so we put accessibility on the back burner, right? I see it happen a lot. I see products take, you know, probably sometimes a little bit unusually long to be released because, okay, what's going on with the accessibility? Oh, we're going to do it, but we have a release coming out. We have an update to do in 2 weeks' time, so all our engineers are focused on that, right? I really wish it weren't that way. And that happens because the powers that be know that, yeah, it's morally right and we need to do it, but we have a lot more important things to do first, right? Whereas where you said, okay, it's a business, it's a market we need to serve, maybe I'll sell 2,000 more units if I supplied 2 engineers for a month to work on accessibility. Guys, try to look at it that way, right? Because that's how I look at it. I mean, I run a commercial studio, and it's business as usual for me. When I buy a product, I'm not going to think, oh, how nice they thought about the fact that it's morally right, or they're going to make it accessible for me. Let me go on Amazon, let me order that so I can do a job and make a lot more money in the next 2 weeks, right? So it's business, it's a business case, it's business as usual, right? I mean, I appreciate all the good thoughts and about yeah, we need to do this because it's morally wrong if we don't. Fine, all well and good. But it's business, guys, it's business. We all in the process of trying to run successful businesses, and when you run a successful business and you make your stuff accessible, I buy your stuff, then I can run an accessible business. I can serve the advertising agencies and all the artists that I record and the film industry. And it's a win-win for all. And yes, you've done the morally correct thing, right? How does that sound? Yeah? So how are we looking for time, Sarah? I need to go a little quicker? Okay, I thought so. Okay, so what I want to do, I kind of want to run around the table with any kind of thoughts from everybody else. I guess I'm rambling kind of long, right? So I want to let's go in same order. So Mary Alice, you know, thoughts going forward. I want everybody to bring, you know, their own take on it. If everybody can maybe take a minute and just kind of talk about anything that I missed or whatever. Let's go. Yes. Of course. So I always save James for last, for a specific reason. James, I'm going to talk now. So James is a lot younger than I am, right? But what James represents to me is the future of accessibility, right? We've been talking about that a lot. And James is just someone who's just, in every aspect of accessibility, James is excited. Jay, what's happening? What's new? What's going on? Right? I'm ready for them. So James is a PhD student at Queen's University, and he's also a music producer and engineer. And James, tell me your thoughts about like when we speak and you find out that new things are accessible and what it's going to do for your career, you know, what your future looks like.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I thought I was going to escape there. Yeah, I mean, I'm James. I'm working on a PhD as part of the Bridging the Gap team at Queen's University. I'm a young, visually impaired music maker, and I prefer Star Wars. But, you know, like Jay's talking about, you know, lots of things happening, and he's right, you know, like massive companies, right? Well, massive for me, you know, like Softube, Avid, Arturia, right? Native Instruments. We're getting all of these new things happening, and when I read about these, when I see them happening, when I get my hands on the gear, and my workflow expands, and the kind of music I can make, the kind of music I can share expands, that is like the best thing ever. It's an amazing feeling. The fact that people are committing to not just making like, you know, music more accessible, but making my life better. Like that's amazing. You know, like I've spoken to lots of people here at ADC over the past sort of the day or two, and the attitude here is so positive towards accessibility, even whenever people don't know, you know, necessarily a lot about it, you know, like, and we're here to help with that, you know. If you are wondering what a screen reader is or how it works, come to the booth, you know. If you want to see how we use optical character recognition, you know, with plugins, come to the booth. If you want to know how we use NKS, come to the booth, you know. We're here to be as well as a business, you know, venture for you guys. We're here to educate. And you know, part of my PhD is finding new ways to think about that. You know, exploring haptics, exploring AI as potential avenues moving forward. And I think as long as we can keep this momentum going, right, keep this positivity going, not scaring people, not being depressing, but looking forward and thinking how cool things can be. I think, you know, like true accessibility, if such a thing exists, is reachable. And yeah, I'm really glad to be here and also just to be a part of it as well. It's really cool.
So that's what the future of accessibility is looking like. People like James, right? So, okay, so we're going to move on. And I want to invite my friend Pierre Pfister to join me on stage. Pierre? Yep. Okay, so Pierre is going to demonstrate the first fully accessible library browser. He'll explain it a little bit better, right? But what it is we've been able to use song libraries, etc., for different software companies, but it was proprietary. So, for example, you had to use their keyboards and, you know, to be able to browse through the libraries, and you can do, and it was hard to do things like search the library, and, you know, like and unlike presets, build splits and layers and everything. And since the release of the Keylab a year ago, you know, Arturia has continued on development, you know, working along with Sarah and myself. And I recently, up to 2 weeks ago, you know, I was invited to their head office in France, and what an experience. I'll tell you all about it when you all come to the booth. But to show you the first fully functional, fully accessible sound library that you can browse using any hardware, although the best experience is using it with their Keylabs, is my friend who's been working on this for 3 years with me in developing analog lab that you can use with any hardware. And again, 3 years, so many amazing developments, and Kevin says it's only the beginning. My friend Pierre Pfister.
Hi. Thank you, Jason.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So thank you, Jason, for having me. If we can have the screen, maybe that would be great. As Jason told you, I didn't know anything about accessibility in 2019, and it was really enlightening to meet with Jason. And as soon as we met, I looked a bit into it, and my first thought was, what's the easiest way to make Analog Lab accessible and in a short time, and then expand. And because we're gonna see that people start using it, and we're gonna improve the accessibility of all our products and improve the accessibility of the keylabs. So the first idea was to make the keylab accessible, and I got this idea from a video I saw from Native Instruments with Complete Control, because I was quite impressed with how they integrated accessibility to their controllers. So we first did a version that made it possible to browse, edit your sounds, and create a performance using the keylabs and the analog lab. Let me see. Okay. And I'm gonna.
Voiceover on live.
Whoa.
Analog Lab V/1 Analog Lab V window. Current preset group has keyboard focus.
Okay. So yeah, to go quickly through the features of keylab and accessibility features of the keylab. So basically, what's happening is, so Analog Lab is the library of all the sounds that we've got in V Collection, Pigments, all the sounds that we've released in our software. And basically, the idea is to browse as efficiently and to edit your sounds with the keylab. So if you
Browse R2600. Use tab to navigate through button.
So you can
Base,
either browse by instruments, types,
type. Use tab to navigate through types. Arrow keys to
and
navigate
then
through
you can
subtypes.
open
Enter to
your
select a
light
filter or escape to
presets
end
if you
filter
want.
browsing button.
So
browsing
let's-
types. Browsing types. Base. Type. Use tab to navigate through types. Arrow keys to navigate through subtypes. Enter to
So
select a
by
filter
just
or
using the
escape to end
keylab,
filter
I
browsing
can
button.
quickly
Browsing
get
LED,
some
big
sounds.
LED. Browsing presets. Aftertouch surprise.
I also have shortcuts on the keylab itself to load some of the sounds. So for example, I can quickly load a piano.
Select piano.
Button. Siri. Button.
An electric
Base.
piano.
Type. Use tab to navigate through types. Arrow keys to navigate through subtypes. Enter to select a filter or escape to end filter browsing button. Select electric piano.
Okay, we're having two keyboards, two accessibility
Okay, I
features
turned off
playing
mine.
at the time.
I turned off mine.
One other feature that you can do with the keylabs is that you can tweak the sound. So every time you turn a knob, the voiceover is going to tell you what knob you're turning.
Brightness 0.291.
So here I'm turning the brightness knob.
Timbre.
Yeah. So it's very basic features, but basically it allows you to browse presets, get your most used presets and tweak them. And you can even create multi-presets. So for example, if I want to create bass sound with e-pianos on top, I can do it only with a keylab without the needing to look at the screen. So I can load a bass sound.
Select bass.
And I can add a second part.
Select part 2.
And add an electric piano, for example.
Select electric piano.
So it's saturating, but so you can hear both a stage 73, so a Rhodes, and a Minimoog bass. And if I want, I can even set a split point.
Select live.
So here I have an electric piano on the right and a bass on the left. So I can't really use my two hands, but you can play both hands and create a whole performance just by doing this. And so that was the first step. And thanks to Juice accessibility features, we just released last week a version of Analog Lab and our software instruments, so all the V Collection, that allow you to navigate and to do basic editing of the presets using your keyboard. So you can even like the presets, save a preset as a user preset, all these kind of basic features. That's what a lot of people are needing in Analog Lab. I think that's it.
So yeah, super cool. And again, it's not tied to any particular hardware. The experience is beautiful using the keylabs, but you're not tied to any particular hardware thanks to the Juice accessibility introduced. So thanks so much, Pierre. And I want to introduce some really special people now. So as I say, Arturo is there, you know, in a lot of ways leading the charge, right? But I want to introduce some people who, you know, they're behind the scenes, but without them, there would not be there won't be accessibility, right? And I want to talk about now, and I want you guys, oh yeah, and I must tell you, remember what Pierre says, because if you come to the booth and he asks you a question on anything he said, who knows what you're walking home with, right? So anyway, so I want to talk about, and I want you guys to come and see it in the booth, fully functional control surface that allows you to mix and master with not 50, not 75, but 100% accessibility. And this is SoftTube, right? And I want to invite my friend, and I'll tell you quickly about this guy. This guy is what I call a genius, right? I'm always going to him with crazy questions. Anytime he comes to me, I come to, this is nice. Can we do this also? Can we do this? And he says to me, it's not impossible. And then he emails me at 6 o'clock the next morning. I did it. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend Arvid Johnson. Arvid, join us. And who has created that space and said, Arvid, you go do this, you do it till it's 100% accessible? Who forward-thinking to create that space? Mr. Patrick Hellstrom, right? Really forward-thinking company, SoftTube. Right? So Harry has joined me on stage, Harry Morley from Focusrite, but a lot of the team are here. There's also Kane McCormack and the whole team. I don't know if Anthony Nichols is here. Is Anthony here? Yeah. Anthony, and I'm not too sure if everybody's here, but Sarah and I have the privilege of working with a lot of the Focusrite team on a lot of different products, right? So everybody from Focusrite, stand up, please.
Yeah, go for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, and the beat goes on, right? Making it possible to create those beats and do it with full accessibility. My friend Stephen Penny and Adel Ganti, Native Instruments. My friend of 3 years who rescued me when I forgot my iLock in Sheffield 2 nights ago, leading the #1 DAW, Mr. Dave Tyler, Pro Tools. Sam Butler from Sibelius, also Avid, and Orla Orak. Sarah always says I get his last name wrong, but my friend Orla, right?
Yeah.
The most amazing modeled instruments that actually annoys my neighbor who's a saxophone player, because when I play keyboard saxophone, we can't tell the difference, what's her and what's me, making the most fantastic modeled plugin for instruments like strings, trumpets, brass, flutes, etc. from all your audio modeling. Simone Capitani, Emmanuel, and Eleonora and Gemma, who's not with us, and the whole team at Audio Modeling. So, who did I forget? I mean, there's so many more. And new people who approached me yesterday who are interested in doing this, you guys at SSL, a lot of people are passionate about doing this, and I commend them, and I commend the people who they work with who make it possible to do this, right? And why is my keyboard not up? Okay, and yeah, so I was looking for a term to, is Alice with us? Can somebody offer Alice a microphone, please? Okay, so yeah, so I was looking for a term to describe these people, right? And I was saying, if there was one word I can use to talk about these amazing engineers who make this possible. We all talk about rocket science and space and everything, right? So I said, rocket men and women. How does that sound to you guys? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Flight 0 hour 9 a.m. and I'm gonna be high as a kite by then. I miss the earth so much, I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space, on such a tireless flight. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me around again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rockin' man. Oh, rockin' man, burning out his fuse of heroin. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rockin' man. Oh, rockin' man, burning out his fuse of heroin. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as hell, and there's no one there to raise them. Oh, but you did. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me around again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh no, 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 I'm a rockin' man. Oh, rockin' man, burning out his fuse of heroin.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alice Eid.
Thank you.
So we have a little surprise. So Alice is going to be at the booth recording some vocals with me in Pro Tools. So if you guys want to come and see how production is done using accessibility, we come and we could probably stress Alice out a little bit, right? We could probably give her a hard time, right? And then in the afternoon, we're going to be mixing and mastering the song on the Softube Console 1. And this evening, we're going to be doing a live performance. 3 keyboard players, Pierre, James, and myself, Alice, and we have another singer coming in. So that's going to be around dinner time. So I hope you all could join us. And then remember what we said, because if you answer a question on what we said, who knows what you're walking home with from the sponsors. I want to thank the sponsors. So we sponsors, we have Focusrite, Arturia, Audio Modeling, Ableton, and there's one more, my brain. And Spotify, of course, Quentin, right? So I want to thank the sponsors who made all of this possible, and thank ADC as well, Sophie Karras, and the team at ADC, for making all this possible. Do we have 2 minutes at all? Okay. So there's someone who I think represents kind of how the industry thinks, or how I believe the industry should be thinking regarding accessibility. He always talks to me about the future. I can't speak Italian, but he always talks to me the future of accessibility. And just to give you a little 1 minute about where the future is going, I've been having a problem loading his video now, but I want to invite my friend Simone Capitani to just give us in a minute or two, Simone. I think you represent what companies should be thinking about the future of accessibility.
Hi, Jason. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. We have a short video on.
No, the video is going to give some problems to run. So if you can just speak live about.
Okay. So basically, we at Audio Modeling just started to work at accessibility. We are not at the level of our colleagues at Arturia, but we did a lot for. Making our software accessible for screen readers. But when we started working on that, my main point of view is the user experience, because I lead the user experience at Audio Modeling. And I think, and we think that the screen reader is just a fix to help overcome some limitations. But we need to rethink the entire experience from scratch. We need to use other systems like vocal assistants, AI, the MIDI 2.0, to think about an experience that everyone can use. So you don't you can use you have to use the screen reader because you cannot see the screen. But if we provide an experience that everyone can benefit, the example that I make is the self-driving cars. A self-driving car has value for people that can drive and people that cannot drive, and has the same way, the same approach to the product. So we need to work together to an ambitious way of designing products from the beginning with this vision. And I hope that we can start to connect with everyone in the industry. We need to connect with operating system developers, framework developers, and our colleagues in the industry to rethink the experience and start with the working group. I don't know. We are open. We don't have the solution. We have just start thinking the problem from another.
Thanks, Simon. And I think you represent, the entire music tech industry, and I love the way you think. Every time we chat, we have such positive conversations. And thanks for your passion, audio modeling passion. And I hope it's everybody's passion and everybody feels the same way. So again, thanks to Spotify, Ableton, Focusrite, audio modeling, and I always forget one. Sophie knows, who am I forgetting? It's 5. Arturia, of course. Anyway, I didn't, okay, the first time I said it, I didn't mention it last, right? So again, Arturia, thanks so much to the sponsors. Thank you to my panelists. Thank you to my beautiful wife, Sarah, who's make sure that I always, maybe at least 10% stay on track. But thanks to everybody. Thanks to all of you coming in. I hope you join us in the booths. There are a lot of cool stuff. You can get hands-on with the technology and come try things out. Join us. Pierre is going to be doing a presentation in a little while. Also, SoftTube. As I say, we're going to give Alice a hard time, right? I'm relying on you all to give Alice a hard time. But after you give her a hard time, you have to follow her on Instagram and look out for her release next 2 weeks. So, guys, thank you so much. Thanks, ADC.